Willie D Live.
Dave Chappelle latest comedy special aired on yesterday. I think it was for the first time. I'm not sure. It seemed like it'd be a little weird that they would air it after the fight so late. But if I know Dave Chappelle, Dave would do something like that. Dave got the kind of star power that hell he can drop a special at halftime, and I bet you half the country would be watching Dave Chappelle's special over watching the Super Bowl halftime. I guarantee you. Dave Chappelle is the real deal. He is the standard. He's the standard. Just like if you were, let's say if you were let's say if you were a doctor and you went and you got yourself a doctorate degree from somewhere, and it would have to be some type of accredited agency. They put that stamp on there, everybody know, okay, yeah, well, they got a pretty good education over there because we know that they got some serious training that they put them through, and so they got a serious curriculum. Dave Chappelle is the standard. Dave Chappelle went in on Charlie Kirk. He went in on Charlie Kirk because people were saying that Charlie Kirk was like Martin Luther King Jr. They were comparing Charlie Kirk to Martin Luther King Jr. And Dave Chappelle said, not so fast. Not so fast. So I can't play the clip because of copyright issues, but he did say, he shut down the claims that Charlie Kirk is this generational's Martin Luther King Jr. He said, the gist of what he said was that they were both shot in the neck, but that's where the similarities end. They were both shot in the neck, but that's where the similarities end. I ain't got no problem with that. I ain't got no problem with that at all. They were both shot in the neck, but that's where the similarities end. You absolutely right, Dave. I think it's absolutely absurd to compare Charlie Kirk to Martin Luther King Jr. That is a disgrace to even mention them in the same voice, in the same breath. That is a disgrace. Let me tell you something, fam. One thing about Dave Chappelle is he's going to speak the truth in his comedy. Even if it offends, he's going to speak the truth in his comedy. And he's going to make you think. I made some notes to make y'all think. Because I wanted to, when I heard that, wait a minute, man. Charlie Kirk, comparing Charlie Kirk to Martin Luther King Jr.? Are you serious? Charlie Kirk, of all people? Martin Luther King Jr.? Come on, man. Say it ain't so. Say it ain't so. So here's what I did, fam. I took the liberty into making some bullet points on why there is no comparison to Charlie Kirk and Martin Luther King Jr. So here's where people make the comparison, right? They point to Charlie Kirk's age and his visibility, his ability to draw crowds, right? And of course, the fact that he died young, he was murdered, he was shot in the neck, right? So, and he was putting out a message that many people felt that was unpopular, right? But that's where the comparisons end. It's not even close. I'm going to tell you why. For all of you out there that you slow pokes out there that might be thinking, well, I don't see any difference. I don't really see any difference. Charlie Kirk is our Martin Luther King Jr. He is our generation Martin Luther King Jr. Okay. So let me tell you why they're not close. Martin Luther King Jr. fought for people who had no power, not people who already dominated politics and culture. Martin Luther King challenged the government and the system at personal risk. Charlie Kirk operated comfortably inside a powerful political ecosystem. Martin Luther King was jailed repeatedly and ultimately killed for his work. Charlie Kirk faced criticism and pushback, not state violence. Martin Luther King preached nonviolence, even when it hurt him strategically. Charlie Kirk's rhetoric often fueled division and grievance. Martin Luther King's movement expanded civil rights for millions through concrete policy change. Charlie Kirk has never delivered comparable and social gains. Martin Luther King spoke for moral philosophy and theology rooted in universal human dignity. Charlie Kirk spoke primarily from partisan ideology. Martin Luther King united people across race, religion, and class. Charlie Kirk appealed largely that it consolidated one political and cultural group. Martin Luther King confronted white supremacy directly and consistently. Charlie Kirk defended white supremacy. He oftentimes minimized or reframed it from modern impact. Martin Luther King Jr. demanded sacrifice from himself first. Charlie Kirk's brand benefited from financially and professionally. Charlie Kirk's brand benefited him financially and professionally. Martin Luther King's legacy is defined by liberation and expansion of democracy. Charlie Kirk's influence is defined by culture, war, and victories. In short, one man led a historic struggle that reshaped the nation at enormous personal cost. The other was skilled at political activism, and he had a microphone, donors, and protection. Those are not the same lanes, not the same stakes, and not the same legacy. Now you tell me when I'm lying. Tell me one lie I told. You can't. Martin Luther King fought for systemic racial injustice that denied basic rights to millions. His leadership advanced civil rights through moral consensus and legal change. Martin Luther King faced repeated imprisonment and global opposition for nonviolent protests. Charlie Kirk operated in mainstream political spaces without systemic legal repression. Martin Luther King's mission was rooted in universal human dignity and equality. Charlie Kirk's activism focused on conservative policy and political ideology. So, as you can see, fam, they are not the same. I could keep going. Martin Luther King won broad international and interracial support and worked to unite diverse communities. Charlie Kirk's base was largely within one political subgroup. Largely within one political subgroup. Martin Luther King's legacy is global and historically transformative. Charlie Kirk's impact, though significant within his sphere, doesn't compare to a civil rights revolution. Martin Luther King willingly sacrificed personal comfort and safety for justice, While Charlie Kirk was slain, he was not targeted because of an organized civil rights stance. Martin Luther King's leadership risked nothing less than the moral soul of the nation. Charlie Kirk's cause was rooted in partisan political battles. Martin Luther King is remembered as a consensus builder across deep divides. The comparison by some supporters of Charlie Kirk often reflects cultural admiration, not historical equivalence. You see? You can't argue that, none of it, because it's all in pocket. I know you love him. I know you miss him. I know you love him. I know you miss him. But just because you love him and you miss him, don't put him on the level of Martin Luther King Jr. And just because Trump and his flunkies are running around here trying to put his name on buildings and on street signs and putting his program in school curriculum, does not mean that he was special. It does not mean he was good for America. You got Confederate generals who have their names on schools. That don't make them special.